My people were biologically determined for one purpose alone, to sense the coming of damn fine podcasts. I sense it coming now. You will never be able to podcast as good as us. Your tongue is too human.
Hello, and welcome to A Discovery Home Companion, a podcast biologically determined for one thing. And that's for talking about Star Trek Discovery.
Before any of us has seen an episode.
Yes, we're getting a little bit ahead of the game here. With me is James Nolan.
Hey, guys.
And Hugh Crawford.
Hello, gentlemen.
Oh, my name is Wade Bowen, and we're talking about Star Trek Discovery. Yes, so you may recognize our voices here. We also do this other Star Trek podcast called The Rules of Acquisition. Other Star Trek Discovery podcasts and other Star Trek podcasts will probably waste 5 minutes of your time telling you how each of us came to Trek and how we became fans. We're not going to do that. Go listen to our other podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we're super fans of everything that has ever came out of Star Trek.
Is that right?
Uncritically enjoying everything.
Oh, my God. Listen, it doesn't matter what we think of Star Trek. It's going to be a mystery that'll unfold over the season.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
Okay?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. That was it. That was the whole dumb joke.
We have another podcast where we talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which I guess is the best of the Star Treks.
So far.
Fuck yeah. So far. Yes.
Yeah.
Leave it at the door.
Yeah. And we talk about that show as a kind of prequel to the modern golden age of peak television that we're in. And so given that that's our kind of consideration of Star Trek that we like to talk about, I don't know if you know, there's this new Star Trek show called Star Trek Discovery that is coming out now in the modern era. And so if we're so concerned about television and Star Trek's place in it, then we should do a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, now that they're actually trying to enter the golden age of television or peak TV or whatever, do we have a firm? We don't have a house style. We like golden age, right?
We say golden age. Everybody else says peak TV. It's just one of the many things that sets us apart from all the other talking in your ears people.
Yeah, Gene here tweeted that the 70s comedies were the golden age of television, not this. But fuck him, he's wrong. This is the golden age. We're on the back. We may be on the back end of the golden age of television, but we're still.
We might be on the back end of the golden age of everything, but here we are talking about.
True. Yeah, society is in decline, folks. Yes. We're not going to be Pollyannish about this, about the Star Trek. We're going to tell you how we feel about it, and we're excited about it.
So, Wade, what does the IMDb description have in store so far for Star Trek Discovery?
The IMDb description says, 10 years before Kirk, Spock, and the Enterprise, the USS Discovery discovers new worlds and life forms as one Starfleet officer learns to understand all things alien.
Bad writing. Discovery discovers.
Wade.
Tell us a little bit of, I guess, the history. I mean, like, people probably know a little bit, but what is sort of the history of how this came about?
It's been, 15 years since the last Star Trek came out? The last Star Trek television show being Star Trek Enterprise.
The underrated Enterprise?
I don't know, a show which I haven't watched. But
I think it's Hugh and our opinion that it's underrated, or at least the first two seasons.
I am pro Enterprise.
I am too.
Yes.
All right, well, my opinion is that it sucks and I haven't watched it.
You watched the theme song and you put it to bed.
Which nobody can blame you. Nobody.
Yeah, no.
Right,
I don't blame. Here's the thing. I am a big cheerleader for Star Trek Enterprise. I don't blame anybody who tried to sit down and watch it, heard 2 seconds of the theme song and just said, nope, and just turned it off. I don't blame you whatsoever. But if you could figure out how to fast forward on Netflix,
yes,
you should really try it out and give Star Trek Enterprise a shot. Yeah. So this is our first CBS television show since Enterprise.
Right.
And Enterprise was not on actual CBS, was it? It was a UPN show, right? Is that correct?
UPN, yeah. I guess to get into that, we could get into the whole CBS Paramount split, which is kind of boring.
That's something I don't quite understand. So if you have some like brief insight on that, that would be good for me to bring me up to speed.
Everybody knows we had those Kelvin movies, the 2009 J.J. Abrams Star Trek put out by Paramount, because CBS and Paramount and Viacom used to all kind of be owned by the same people. And then there was a split, and CBS got the TV rights to Star Trek, and Paramount, which stayed with Viacom, got the movie rights to it. And then so now all the rights are kind of complicated now. But since we've hit the 50th anniversary of Star Trek and everything, they decided they need to put out a TV show because they have franchises. And so Discovery is the first Star Trek TV show in a long time. That's the short version.
When I first started hearing about this was right as American Horror Story and True Detective were sort of taking the golden age by storm, and that this was going to be pitched as like an anthology series where it's like 10 episodes. And that's how I'd heard about it. And that got me kind of excited.
Right. Well,
but we don't know if that is not the plans as of now.
Yeah.
To make that the case here.
Well, I mean, I remember the original showrunner for Discovery, Bryan Fuller, used to talk about, there were articles about how he wanted to redo Star Trek or do his own Star Trek with a black captain, and it never came about.
He had a fantasy casting that he talked about for years. Is that correct?
Yeah. It was like
Angela Bassett
as a captain, yeah. That's
pretty good.
Yeah, that's...
And so he would talk about this because he was a writer. He wrote for Voyager and he wrote for Deep Space Nine, both. Is that correct?
Right. He wrote 2 scripts. He sold 2 stories to Deep Space Nine, and then he was brought on as a writer and was in the writer's room for Voyager.
So he had the pedigree.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he has like the bona fides.
Then he went on to make truly, I mean, I only watched one of them, but truly great television shows. You watched them all, right, Wade?
I didn't finish Hannibal.
Hannibal's
amazing. Yeah.
What about Pushing Daisies? Did you guys?
I like Pushing Daisies a lot. I like Dead Like Me. I like all the shows, honestly.
So he got a reputation for himself, and he's pretty great. He did just American Gods, which I didn't watch because I don't have stars.
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
which is part of the controversy.
Yeah,
people were excited when they announced that Bryan Fuller is the showrunner. Then people were thinking maybe they're trying to rush it out to get it done for the 50th anniversary. He's a busy man. He's a well-respected showrunner, so he had like 2 other shows he's working on. He was really committed to American Gods, and then was also committed to work on the Amazing Stories reboot.
That's a show that nobody was asking for, though, right?
Yeah, that was, though. I remember watching that when I was a kid.
But I mean, seriously, it's not Star Trek, though, where people are clamoring.
It's Spielberg's vanity.
People aren't going to Amazing Stories conventions, as far as I know.
No. But I think that Bryan Fuller now has become, in some degree, a household name unto himself.
Right.
Yeah.
So he can sell a project based on his name, so he doesn't have to. I think, in my mind, Bryan Fuller coming on to do this show,
it was a big deal.
It was a big deal it was a big get for CBS.
Well, it was a critical get, but Bryan Fuller's shows have never been
moneymakers,
economic success, moneymakers.
They're not money in the bank for the networks, right?
Right. And it's like they wanted a flagship show to sell their new service. Oh, he's like if they got Matthew Weiner to do a show for him or something.
Right.
Yeah. This is the wrong guy for the wrong. This was the wrong project.
But it was his dream project, and all the Star Trek nerds, he was a dream showrunner for it.
Yeah, I still think that. I mean, I think that the story that we're going to lay out here is a show about CBS being really short-sighted about what they're going to be doing because they fired him over creative differences because he wanted to do. Probably something pretty weird.
Okay, what do we know about the separation? I know new stuff's come to light, but I don't know the thrust of it. What do you guys know any of the details?
Right,
Les Moonves disagreed, right, with a lot of the direction of.
Well, that's all kind of up in the air because it's all PR speak, kind of like. When he left after the new year in January or December or whenever he moved on, it was like, oh, he's overbooked.
Yeah.
He's busy because he's got this commitments to other shows.
Which is what you would say.
Yeah, which is what you would say. And then it came out later that maybe there were some creative differences and that they wanted, I think the latest thing was like, okay, they wanted a show in January and he was like, I just can't do it. I think the latest spin is that he wanted Sonequa Martin Green to be the lead, and they're like, we need the show now, but they have to wait for her Walking Dead contract to complete. And then also they were having little creative differences because, yes, his original pitch was to do it as an anthology series like American Horror Story, where each season would be a different time and they could jump and tell different stories in different eras of Star Trek. And then they're like, well, that's too much. We're not going to do that. And then he's like, okay, fine. Well, we don't have to, that's my dream pitch. And then there were other more kind of disagreements, and then they kind of let him go. And it's all kind of washy because I'm sure they're all under NDAs and they're being professional about it and not talking too much shit out of school.
Yeah. But the rumors are that it was a hard fire. It was a creative differences firing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because he wasn't bringing what they wanted. And and the other thing that he wanted to do, there's been, if you're listening to this podcast, you might know some of this. A lot of people are upset about the costumes and some of the aesthetic choices and whatnot. And apparently his original, he wasn't for the blue uniforms. He wanted more closer to the velour sweaters and stuff.
Yes.
Something on the way to that. And they're just
really?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the colors.
Fun stuff. He wanted it to look fun.
Yeah. And then a thing that I was noticing today, like when he first came on, they were showing, he was tweeting pictures of makeup tests for Andorians and stuff.
No way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I think it's set now that there's not going to be any Andorians in this.
Yeah, like
they're really locking in the Klingons and Doug Jones is Lieutenant Saru. But other than that, I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of alien culture. Well, that's not true.
So what they wanted, it seems to me that like what CBS wanted versus what Bryan Fuller wanted. Bryan Fuller is I'm not even trying to code this. He's a flamboyant man who makes flamboyant shows. Bright colors, vivid things. And even on a show like Hannibal, which is about a serial killer, with the glee and exuberance with which he went through body mutilations and things like that were such a strange aesthetic that it was exciting if you're into that kind of thing. But it wasn't like a horror. In no way was the show really a horror show. It wasn't even really that much of a suspense they did in moments. It had that card in its deck, but it wasn't like fully like a super suspenseful show. It was just more of an interesting sort of psychological character show. And I didn't watch Pushing Up Daisies, but it seems like it's fun, crazy.
It was a twee show about, it was kind of twee.
Yeah.
I don't even mean that necessarily as a pejorative. I love Wes Anderson movies, blah, blah, whatever.
Yeah. But let's say that he wanted to take, in my mind, and I don't know this, but it seemed to me that all the stuff that I was seeing, that he was trying to create a show that lived and existed in that fun 60s era. Because if we think of Star Trek like The Wrath of Khan, it's dark, dystopic sci-fi. But that's not the show. The show's crazy bright colors and everything works out. And you have these interesting philosophical questions, and it's about pushing man to a higher plane and having a more hopeful view of the future. Next Generation got there too, but what it wasn't Battlestar Galactica. We love I love Battlestar Galactica, but this show looks like Battlestar Galactica to me, and I think that's what they wanted.
It looks like Mass Effect to me, but that's a video game.
Or something like that. I think that they wanted these sort of intense emotions and adult situations.
Yeah.
In space with people expressing emotions.
Well, I think Bryan Fuller does that remarkably well. Exactly what you're describing.
I don't know. I don't think of his work as dark. I think it is
Hannibal is pretty dark, but it's fucking beautiful at the same time.
That's what the thing is. It wasn't dark like Michael Bay dark.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that I remember seeing pictures, and it may have just been of the writing staff, but they were all dressed up in velour sweaters, and it had they were going to bring back that 60s aesthetic to the show. And I liked that. That's exciting to me. I like that even about the Kelvin stuff. Like when they try to... Yeah. I like the colorful nature of it.
Everything's bright in the Kelvin universe. And there is a freewheeling aspect to it that seems fun and inviting.
Yeah.
See, that's interesting that y'all are making that point, because that was the next point I have here, is that the other thing that the show was doing that maybe wasn't the intention from the beginning when Fuller was on it was just how Kelvin-y it is getting.
Well, there's Kelvin-y aspects to it. But I think it's a weird hybrid. It looks like a weird hybrid.
The design to me is more Kelvin-y, like there's lens flare. And then
Yeah, I think the artistic is about the sort of action elements of the Kelvin universe. What I keep going back to is these like space outfits. They all look like they're fucking like they work at the Hotel Federation.
Yeah.
Like they're ready to take your bags.
Yeah,
well, they even have the Federation symbol chainmail as part of the costumes that were also in the Kelvin timeline.
Do they really in the new one?
Yeah,
when you zoom in on the silver on the side of the blue jumpsuits.
I didn't know that.
They're chainmail.
It's wild.
But it's hard to, you can't tell. I mean,
no.
It's just, they look like they work at the Hotel Budapest, but not anywhere near. They look like they look at a very dour Hotel Budapest, the actual Hotel Budapest.
Yeah. I like the design. I like the designs well enough. I just wish they were different colors instead of blue and silver.
They look like Empire. They look like they're from the Star Wars.
They don't even look like that to me. They look like Mass Effect.
They're double-breasted. They're high-collared. They're not velour. They're not fun. They're not jumpsuits. They're not fun. I don't know. And maybe the show. And I don't. I'm a dark fucker. I'm not like. I like.
You
shit
mean
that
you're
gets,
wait a
gets
minute.
Dark.
Now, for our listeners at home, he dresses like Bruce Valanche, but don't act like you're not. This isn't Frank Miller here. You're talking to.
No. I don't mean like I don't mean I'm goth. What I'm trying to say, you're right. I do.
No, I don't see you look like it. So you dress like him. You've got fun T-shirts and bangs. Don't. He's got fun T-shirts and bangs. Don't.
But what I'm saying is that I like shows that deal with human depravity and dark nights of the soul and shit like that. Not everything has to be like happy fun shit, but I did specifically, I felt like that I was sold that this show would rekindle that, and I kind of need that right now, and I'd be interested in watching something with a more hopeful message. And that's one of the things that I liked about watching Enterprise recently. One of the things I liked about it is that there was this sort of positive, hopeful element to it that got sort of squashed.
Okay, now you're disappointed in aspects of the show that we cannot be confirmed. We don't know. It might have a hopeful message.
Well, I feel like that it was sold. You're right. That it was sold a certain way, and now it just looks like
it looks like a dour experience.
That's what I'm saying.
We could go. I mean, we can segue here to they have confirmed that the Roddenberry rules are thrown out the window.
That's good.
Yeah, which I'm a kind of...
I guess, do we need to go into that on our last podcast? We've beat the Roddenberry rules to death on Rules of Acquisition.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
But I guess for new listeners...
Just a recap.
We think that the Roddenberry rules are shitty for storytelling.
You do. I have this...
Well, do you know... The folks need to know what the Roddenberry rules are.
Well, just like this grand utopian vision kind of thing.
But the big one is that two Starfleet officers can't have conflict with each other.
All right, because humanity has evolved.
Yeah, it's because humanity has evolved to a point where we're living in a sort of a communist ideal. Not only a country, but our planet seems to be a global nation.
Globalist.
Yeah. Be scared of that shit, Alex Jones. They're communists. They're globalists. They're hanging around with a bunch of aliens.
And they have no need for supplements in the future.
Yeah, they're not taking powders. They're not milkshakes. They're not taking pills. I take these neurotropics all the time. So
same shit as goop.
Same shit. I do. We're basically just goop for dudes.
But, hateful dudes. Hateful goop.
Goop for angry dudes. But yeah, so it's this globalist ideal, and that's all great. It's super. I don't know if you know us very well, but that's our bag, baby. I'm super into that part of it. But then it gets into the two Federation officers can't have conflict with each other. And these sort of like the rules of military engagement I like because they're there as a tension for what decisions the Star Trek ship can make.
Right.
But the actual interconflict was if you want to see how that turns out, watch the first season of Next Generation where it was most rigidly adhered to.
Right. I like the kind of box that kind of forces stories to tell into, and then Deep Space Nine does that by having the aliens with the conflict that the Federation people don't have. Mm-hmm. And then even later on in Deep Space Nine, even the Federation people have those conflicts.
Yeah, yes. In Deep Space Nine, they entered into the eating isn't cheating loophole of like adding.
Well, I mean, some sticklers for details might point out that the original series had conflict between, but it was all because like an alien took over your body, type thing.
That was just about what I was about to get into actually next.
Right.
Like those Roddenberry rules weren't actually set out until TNG.
Yeah.
So it was a thing that the showmakers for Discovery came out and said they're breaking these rules, and a lot of the Star Trek Trekkies and Trekkers got kind of like upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
But this show, Discovery, is set 10 years before Spock and Kirk in the original series. So the box wasn't even there yet. There was the Prime Directive. That was there, but that was a lot different than the Roddenberry box that you get.
All the Roddenberry rules. Yeah. Okay. So you can make this canon that I guess that the Roddenberry rules were society evolved post Kirk and pre Picard.
Right.
Is where the Roddenberry rules exploded. Yeah, I guess we should also say that, I don't know, I am specifically, I don't want to speak for all of us here, I'm pretty clear-eyed about Roddenberry and what he brought to Star
yes,
Trek.
I think I am too. I think yes. That's a really nice way of putting it. We're not Roddenberry sycophants. We're not like we're not here to make some sort of
deify the man about
mythology. Deify Gene Roddenberry. Look, this guy was
allegations that are despicable and that we're not going to.
Sure, but even if you didn't have those personal like horror stories that people have, he was still just a guy who was a writer in a room who basically wanted to bend genres to tell different kinds of stories, and that doesn't make him exceptional.
And he got this sort of in the 70s after the show was canceled and the legend of the show sort of grew to where these convention things were blowing up. He got kind of a complex. I don't want to compare him to L. Ron Hubbard because it didn't go that far, but it was a Hubbardian sort of elevation of his own self-worth. And I think I think he thought himself a preacher of a religion that a lot of Trek fans have bought into. And that's fine because I agree with most of the tenets of his religion, not of his personal actions.
Right.
Yes.
I agree with you. But I will say that I do think the man was visionary, even in the original series. You know, he was pretty forward thinking and pushing the boundaries for what they could do on television and having this diversity and infinite combination was a principle that apparently was even there in the original series.
Yeah.
And we talked about the globalist. Uhura was from the United States of Africa as a representative. So there is that. And then even the showrunners for Discovery, even though they say that they've thrown out these Roddenberry rules and everything, the box, they do pay lip service and say that they are striving, even whether or not the rules in the box and everything, there is a utopian vision in Star Trek. We're striving towards greatness. It's an optimistic future as opposed to most sci-fi that you see that's popular is kind of dystopic, you know, and Star Trek is about having that kind of golden city on a hill to strive for, except not a religious illusion. It's more humanist.
Yeah.
And this writers and producers and everybody on Discovery are cognizant of that. And they do their whole thing. The line they've kept saying, and when they are making excuses for throwing out the rules, is that they are striving, and Discovery takes place in a war. It's the conflict before utopia is what Discovery is kind of investigating, which brings us to another thing from the show. Apparently, the Klingon War is going to be a big thing in Discovery, which also might have to do with why Axanar, which is a fan-made Star Trek film that was made by people that were trying to cash in on it, and there was big lawsuits. We won't go into all of that. You might.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Well, it was the Axanar movie that they were making, and they were making for profit, and they were shut down and everything. The closer we get to Discovery and learn that it's set in the Klingon Federation War, makes more sense to me why they were so like, we got to shut this Axanar shit down, because Axanar is all about the war with the Klingons. And they're like, well, then we can't have the fan-made films doing that.
Yeah. So, okay. But some of this stuff, like, we can say that it's not in a utopia, but like I think some of the more, like, and let's say what we mean by utopia is not that everything is perfect, but that you have equality, like a naturally existing equality amongst people financially, and we've evolved beyond money, we've evolved beyond commerce, or what does Manu call it?
Oh, Trekonomics?
In Trekonomics. Yeah, what is it talk about in Trekonomics?
The
post-scarcity economy. Because we can basically create a lot of what we need.
Right.
In material. Like we can materially create it. A lot of that sort of need for humanity's toil is over. We do live in a shared global community, all contributing to each according to his means, from each according to their ability. But that was in Enterprise. That was the lay of the land. They still had to get over some vestiges of working with its pre-Federation, but Earth has largely solved its problems. And we were learning to work with other nations to go into like a
united Earth.
Yeah, we were at a united Earth. We were looking at getting into a united federation of planets.
Okay.
Where all the rules are made.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, because Enterprise, which is set before Discovery, which is 10 years before the original series, they were kind of also within that Roddenberry box, which kind of brings me to another question I have here is like, okay, so how is Prime canon, Prime Universe canon versus the Kelvin canon, and whether Star Trek Discovery is canon Star Trek, and their adherence to canon, and canon is a big buzzword that they're using a lot because a lot of the nerds got upset about
it's seemingly being a Kelvin universe deal.
Yes, but from the beginning they've been saying it's Prime Universe, which
it's like Kelvin aesthetics with but Prime continuity. Is that the thing?
Yeah, that's my question. Is like, okay, what is canon?
It's more of an aesthetics thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because visual canon doesn't seem like it's something that they're adhering to very much. So God, this is pretty nerdy. Okay, so I'm supposed to believe that like Enterprise is both Kelvin and Prime timeline.
Right, because it takes place before Kirk was born.
Because the Prime line doesn't
so
split.
It works with both.
Right.
Enterprise is like...
Yes. So when Thor Thor died,
Jim Kirk's dad was Thor.
That thing is when the universe. Yeah. So when Thor died, that's
right.
What split the universe.
The 2009 Star Trek film when Spock comes back in time.
So let's say that's probably 10 years previous to Discovery.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess you're right.
I think it's like 30 years after Enterprise. Like, I don't think Enterprise takes place 100 years before Kirk. I think it's 50 years before Kirk.
Okay. Well, either way, it's before Discovery.
So 40 years. Yeah,
we should probably figure that out, huh?
That is something we should probably all know, or we're going to get slammed on that.
It doesn't matter because Enterprise takes place before all of it, so none of it doesn't really matter.
No, I know.
I guess unless Trip shows up as like an admiral in Discovery or something like that.
That would make me happier than anything
else actually
about the show.
All right. Well, we got way more sidetracked with Enterprise than I expected for this podcast.
Right.
So what do we?
Yeah, we haven't even hit the Klingons yet.
Right. We're talking about Prime canon versus.
We know that the Klingons play a big part, and we can get into Klingon, like what we like and don't like about what we've seen in Klingons. But we also know that Harry Mudd is in this. We know that Spock's dad is in this. And that Klingon culture plays a part in the new series somehow?
Yes. Yeah. The whole Prime visual and canon, that takes us to Klingons, because Klingons are probably the big sticking point for everybody that is mad about the direction of Star Trek Discovery.
So this is what I want. This is what I want you to do. Because I have purposely avoided a lot of this information. Tell me the story of what they're doing with the Klingons as you understand it. And then sell it to me.
Okay.
Because I need to hear someone enthusiastically.
Okay, so I'm excited about a lot of the Klingon stuff because in TNG and Deep Space Nine, we get some Klingon history and world building, but it's mostly just proper nouns. We don't really actually...
We get like the reincarnated messiah of Klingon.
Yeah, well, he's a clone.
We get a lot.
Well, but the nuts and bolts of it, we know that things happen, and we get names. We mostly get names like Kalis and Molor and...
important houses.
Yeah, well, and the houses are just names of characters that we've met for the most part.
I would argue, I'm going to argue, just let you know my bias. My bias is that the Klingons are the most clearly developed alien race of all of them.
Even more than the Vulcans, you think?
Okay, the Vulcans are heavily... dealt with in
everything
Enterprise, and well, in is it like not a lot in Deep Space Nine? I haven't watched Voyager. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's a thing in Voyager because when you're 70 years away from home and you go through Pon Far,
right.
It's an issue.
You need a hologram of your wife to fuck so you don't go crazy.
Oh, he's got a okay. So I didn't know that hologram.
I don't think
it's a thing.
Could quench a
No, it can't really. I think that was part
of
that was that's part of the weakness of Voyager.
I think modern pharmaceuticals is how he got through it, but whatever.
Oh yeah.
So
T'Pol's Pon farr became an issue, and since they basically
everybody's Vulcan boner becomes an issue at one point if you have a Vulcan in the show.
Yes, but I would say that Klingons are more developed than Vulcans. It's closer with them than anything else.
We know things about them. We know, but it's all here and there. We know that what are the race that kind of stole all their shit in the Sword of Kahless.
Orc?
Yeah, the Herc.
The Herc.
The Herc came along, and we know that they're a thing. We don't know anything about them. We know Kahless is a person, and that Kahless killed Molor to found the Empire. Molor was a tyrant. Whether he was, I guess he was a Klingon, or he might have been Herc. I don't know. And whether the Herc are actually could be have interbred with Klingons, that's a thing we don't know. There's sarcophagus ships, and then Worf has stated they don't care about the bodies of dead Klingons.
So wait, why is this an issue? The show just has funny looking Klingons, right? They look different.
Right.
And they're trying to create a story for why they look
This is all because people write over each other, mostly.
Yeah, so you thinking that we're primed for some continuity errors?
No, well, yes, and people trying to fill in continuity, which is filling in the continuity is what I'm excited about. We know that they don't keep their dead, except we also know from Star Trek 3, just one image that comes and goes and is recognized as a Klingon mummification glyph is the one bit of information to counteract the idea that Klingon don't preserve their dead. Because some people were upset that Star Trek Discovery, there's a sarcophagus ship, which is named. Some people were upset because the Klingons supposedly don't keep their dead, but then there's a Klingon mummification glyph in Star Trek 3, which counteracts that. And so there is room. This is real nerdy shit right here, right now.
I was going to say, that's pretty bad. That's like that's intense.
Okay, but so to give you an update, you're not selling me. To get into what is in the story? What is in the story? What do we know about?
We don't know a whole lot. We know that there's a sarcophagus ship with a dead Klingon in it, and there's something called a Klingon torchbearer that does something, and there's a costume for a Klingon torchbearer, and there's 24.
It sounds like to me that they aren't doing anything like what.
No, you haven't let me finish.
To me, okay, yeah, let him finish.
Okay, it's fair. That's a fair point.
The other thing, there are 24 Klingon houses in the Empire, and each Klingon house. And part of the way that they've told people not to sweat how the Klingons look different, we've talked about on the Rules of Acquisition podcast, how every alien has a monoculture problem where they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And Discovery has said, yes, we've noticed that as well. And we have 24 Klingon houses, and each house has a distinctive visual style. They have different fashions. They even have different maybe racial phenotypes.
Epilegroups.
Right, because the Klingons are an empire, so the fact that they live on many, many planets means that they've said that they would evolve in all these different ways too, but there would be genetic more diversity among the Klingons, and that perhaps what we've seen in Star Trek is not because Klingons aren't diverse, but maybe we haven't seen every house and the full diversity of Klingons. And half of the cast, it seems like, of Star Trek Discovery and half the storylines, they've even said like a lot of Star Trek Discovery will be actors speaking in Klingons with subtitles without universal translators making them sound English. The actors are learning Klingon and speaking in Klingon.
Jesus Christ.
And I am excited by that.
I've never felt less close to you than I do right now.
Sorry. No,
me and Wade have been friends for 20-something years. So. Okay, it sounds to me that what you're describing is pretty interesting if this was Ultimate Comic Star Trek, but this is not. This is set in.
I'm kind of with Wade because here's the thing: what's always irritated me is that everything you have three aliens of the week. They're all wearing this exact same makeup.
Sure.
And it all does feel, kind of thrown together. So they're going to take a deep dive on one of the most popular alien cultures in the world of Star Trek. So I'm kind of more open-minded than I was at the beginning of this, hearing that that's the goal. That's why you see some of the pictures and they look weird. I'm sure we'll get some hairy Klingons.
That's
no. Every Klingon that they've leaked looks exactly the fucking same. They
don't look the same.
That could just be one house, though, James.
Well, this is where I've tried to talk up the things I like about it, and I can talk about the things I'm a little more trepidatious about. They do look different. Like, even they showed a Klingon they just announced at Star Trek Creation Entertainments in Las Vegas, this new Klingon actor that we haven't seen before, and they showed his image, and he's got kind of the biker leather gear, which looks a lot more like the Klingons that we know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, the costuming is great. He's got just a little detail that a lot of people miss. He's wearing a Federation comm badge, like he's gotten it from the spoils of killing people.
Like he took it off of somebody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's like, he's taking ears kind of thing.
That's kind of clever. That's clever. I like
and his
that.
name's Cole, and he is from the House of Kor.
What?
Yeah.
Our old friends.
Which actually, I'm a little trepidatious because everybody is House of people that we know.
That's Kor's daddy, probably.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a more militaristic, like, we need to cling on.
Okay, so I'm looking at Commander Cole.
Yes.
And Commander Cole is the guy that I've been bitching about when I talk about bitching about Klingons.
Is he silver?
He's a little blue.
He's purple.
Blue.
He's purple.
Well, it's the lighting.
See,
they've got blue gels on all the lights.
All these blue bastards, they could be wiped out at the end of this series, and that's why you don't see them anymore. That could be a story of how.
Okay. But here's why it gets too cute. They have to tie it into Kor, and Kor is already fucked up because Kor looks like a bronze Fu Manchu, and then he looks totally different on Deep Space Nine. He looks like Klingons are supposed to look.
Well, he had that genetic reassignment surgery.
Yes, they bent over backwards to explain that element. Now it looks like they're throwing that Enterprise explanation out the window.
Yeah, which is that's where I get.
I think there's room for the Enterprise explanation.
There is, but we haven't seen. Okay, this is where I'm going to start shitting on the new Klingons. There's room for that, and then all the producers, everybody on the show has been throwing Bryan Fuller under the bus, saying that he was the guy that insisted on the new design for the Klingons because the Klingons did not need to be, quote, the thugs of the universe. And so
they look worse. They look like Nosferatu.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he didn't agree. Like, I'm sure that he said they needed a redesign. But my whole thing is, apparently even the redesign, no Klingons ever have hair anymore. And that's a minor thing, except it's not.
It's not. They're kind of marked
because it's throwing out the visual canon.
It's not throwing out the visual canon. People, we don't wear fucking powdered wigs, as same as people did 200 years ago. Stuff can change over a period of time.
But Hugh, but then does it go back? We're not going back to this is smack dab in the middle of all the canon that we've had. So we've seen Klingons in Enterprise. We've seen Klingons and they look weirder on the original series, and then we've seen Klingons in the later 80s on thing. They look a certain way. If I get through this whole thing and they don't have one house that resembles a Klingon that we've seen before, then I'll call bullshit.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they leak that? Why wouldn't they leak that just to get the fans to shut up?
Well, you don't want the fans to shut up. You want the fans to do exactly what we're doing right now. You leak the most.
No, you want the fans to pay $3.99 for CBS All Access.
And the other thing,
that's probably
when they've gotten all this controversy and people pissed off about the Klingons, they've actually come out and it's felt to me like they're trying to do damage control, where they're like, oh, wait a minute, we're going to explain why the Klingons look different. And like, oh, okay, all right, tell me how, tell me more. You're going to explain how they look different. Yes, well, we're going to explain it because Klingon biology, they have all these extra sensory inputs in their head, like snakes have like pit sensors and stuff.
What?
And because they're apex predators, they have all these extra sensory organs in their head, and hair gets in the way of those sensory organs. And so they've kind of said that, like, well, that's not an
So they shave their head?
Yeah, that's not an explanation of why you changed the shit. I applaud your biological explanation for the aesthetics of what you've done.
Sure.
But that doesn't explain why you made the changes. You're still retconning the original.
This is all because there is no book. There is no keeper of the book. There is no grand narrative showrunner anymore. Roddenberry's dead. Rick Berman's, I don't know what the fuck Rick Berman's doing.
Yeah, he didn't care.
But that's fine. He can stay there. But there is no one person except for Alex Kurtzman, the most talentless person in all of Hollywood.
What?
And I stand.
Yeah.
Whoa, look that up.
No. James, I heard Tim Heidecker give The Mummy very good review. That's not, I don't know about any of that.
Yeah.
I would love to hear Tim Heidecker. Is that really a thing?
Yeah. He's got that Adult Swim show on the movies.
Oh, right.
Oh, I need to watch
Where
that.
him and the manager from Baskin Robbins and Ant-Man.
Neil Hamburger?
Yeah. They have a movie, the Siskel and Ebert show.
And I'm sure the irony and sarcasm just
Yeah.
drip
Oh my
from like
gosh.
everything there.
Yeah.
You've actually brought me to the next point on my list here to talk about. Now, we've talked about Fuller being ousted and the actual people they brought in to replace him. I'm optimistic about Star Trek Discovery. Let me just put that caveat out there.
Wait.
Except I hate the producers. Well, I am very concerned about the producing people that they've brought on. They kicked out Fuller, but his two people that were in all the writing rooms and producers on all his shows, his two showrunners that he brought on, I was like, okay, let them be the showrunners, please, because they've been with Fuller and they're going to probably keep to his, syllabus or whatever. Mm-hmm. But no, they've got Alex Kurtzman, who was a producer on the JJ movies and a lot of other shit.
And the writer of every horrible movie you've seen in the last 10
No.
years.
Hey, that's not fair. He's not the writer of every horrible movie.
Transformers, American, the Amazing Spider-Man.
Hey, James, let me just finish. Alex Kurtzman is not the writer of every horrible movie. The other writer of every horrible movie is the other producer they brought on, Akiva Goldsman, which is the one that I hated the most because he wrote Batman Forever, and I've never forgiven him, and I've never watched another Joel Schumacher movie since then. James, you've known me for a long time. You can attest to that.
Yeah. He hasn't made a lot of good movies he hasn't made a lot of good movies, period.
Yeah.
I think you missed the movie where Philip Seymour Hoffman played a drag queen.
Yeah.
That in itself had
Yeah, Akiva Goldsman is the other guy, a producer they brought on, and it felt to me like the suits were bringing in ringers because these people have made movies and made a lot of money. And, Akiva Goldsman he wrote that stupendous movie that just came out that's getting all the great reviews called The Dark Tower.
Oh, yeah, he wrote that?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We were talking about The Dark Tower before we were recording a little bit. This is what I was referring to.
He screwed up something that he didn't have to screw up.
Right. Well, before this movie, even I think it got screwed up in production. And he's a guy that's made a lot of movies. And my problem is maybe, hey, if you think I'm wrong, Akiva Goldsman, and you're listening, tell me I'm a fucking asshole. But I think your problem is that you take your notes from the suits and you do what you want, and then you cave and you make shit movies. Because his original pitch for The Dark Tower was to do a movie, then do a mini-series television for books that worked better as elongated stories.
Oh, no. That's what the plan was for. I don't want to make this the Dark Tower hour, but that is still, they might be scrapping that. That was like an actual plan that Sony had in place.
That was a plan that Akiva Goldsman had.
Dude, they're scrapping everything.
Yeah.
They're scrapping everything. This movie didn't do shit.
And that was Akiva. I don't know if it was his plan, but he talked it up like it was his plan because that's the other thing I'll give him. The man gives good interview.
Yeah, he gives a good copy.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my funny story about Akiva Goldsman. If you read any list of the best books written in the last 40 years, there's only two books that they're always topped, and one of which is Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, and that is the best book I've ever read.
It's pretty good.
It's amazing. The other book you'll always see is Mark Halperin's
Close enough.
A Winter's Tale.
Oh yeah, he made that movie. Yeah.
Akiva Goldsman made this movie.
It's pretty bad.
And it is, I haven't seen it, but everything you hear about it, it makes it, I mean, this is considered the best book, one of the two best books of the last 40 years. And the movie it has a reputation near The Room in quality. So with Will Smith playing the devil, I
Yeah,
believe.
and then they bring it. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I've heard like synopsis of the movie, and I'm like, all right, okay.
Yeah, the book sounds like shit to me too. I've tried to read it once, but I mean, people love it. I mean,
Sure.
Not like the people who buy 50 Shades of Grey, but
Right.
like, you know.
People love the book. Nobody loves the movie.
People are holding Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian or Winter's Tale and going, I don't know which one's best. Like those kind of people like it. So, yeah. So that's Akiva Goldsman for you.
Yeah. So
I wanted to, that's my point with the Klingons, is that you don't have anyone guiding the ship, but you have a lot of people who are wanting to cow to the Les Moonveses of the world, which any great television production has a firewall between the writer's room and the creatives and the Les Moonves.
This one does not.
Yes, I'm sure that David Chase didn't let Matthew Weiner know what notes HBO was giving him, even though HBO is like a great place to work for this kind of creativity. But you have these suits trying to call shots. You have a bunch of Hollywood cokeheads trying to like fucking like please them and get paid. I mean, if you look at what Alex Kurtzman's got on his IMDb upcoming, he's the head of the entire monster Universal horror,
the shared universe,
the dark universe. Yeah, that. So he's producing all like he's fuck that guy. So you have all of that going on. Then you bring on new writers, and they're probably not super interested in Star Trek.
Okay.
And then so everybody wants to be creative. I want to bring my own touch to things. And I think that's the problem, is that you need someone telling them, don't do that.
Okay.
Wade, where are the Star Trek bona fides with this? Like, we've got...
This is where I disagree with you. And this is where I think, well, the Las Vegas convention just ended, and everybody is just trying to suck each other's dick the most about who loves Star Trek the most. And Akiva Goldsman is like, I went to my first Star Trek convention in 1976, and he's convinced a lot of the Trekkers that he's bona fide. And Alex Kurtzman, and the thing is, I actually believe him.
Yeah, but you're right. But that's not what
I think everybody.
It's not hard to be a fan.
Yeah, I think everybody actually wants to do right by Star Trek.
Right.
The writers' room, I actually like everybody in the writers' room. I think are probably actually good writers and would be writing the best Star Trek that we could see in a long time. Like Kirsten Beyer wrote a lot of novels. She's written a lot of Voyager novels, but by all accounts, that are great. I could name a lot of people in the writers' room. Joe Monosky, we haven't heard from, questionably, which was a writer on Deep Space Nine and Voyager, wrote scripts. Apparently, nobody's talking about him anymore because nobody knows. He may have left with Bryan Fuller because Bryan Fuller even acknowledged him as a mentor at one point. I don't know about that, but I know that everybody is like, they keep talking about how they have people in the room just to respect canon, but they also talk about knowing when to bend canon, and that's what kind of makes me nervous.
Yeah, okay, so I'm afraid I'm coming off as like the uber protectionist sort of Trek guy, and I don't give a fuck enough to care. But
well, you give a fuck enough to have a podcast about it,
right?
So
I give a fuck to have a podcast of
Well, wait a minute.
I love Deep Space Nine, guys. But what I want is the only reason you make these shows and set them in these universes that you've already pre-established as a film storytelling thing. So it's not like Marvel needs to respect the comics for their representation of the Shocker or the Mandarin. I'm not that guy, because you're translating it into a different realm from comics to the television and everything like that. But if you're going to make new Star Trek shows, let's please not just keep reinventing the goddamn wheel here. The whole point of it is to have an established universal canon. So the Klingons look and act and live a certain way that's been established.
Oh God, you're so bent out of shape about the Klingon look.
I don't know. It bothers me that I have to like feel like, I don't know. Like it bothers me that I had to like,
listen, if they don't have
if the story is fun,
right,
it doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
I'm going to, if the story rings cherries,
right,
I'm going to be happy. I love a good story. I love good characters, so I don't give a shit about all that. But
that's where I'm at.
It doesn't look like they're going to nail that either.
If they don't have a minimum of 2 episodes dedicated to Klingon opera, the whole thing's a waste of time.
I know. You got to get the Klingon opera.
Yeah.
I guess I'm saying that what got me through Enterprise when it sucked and it did suck for good chunks of it.
There were some doldrums there.
Is that you are building off a pre-existing canon. It's something to talk about. There's puzzle pieces to put into your little world-building mind. And you knew that it was for the most part pretty consistent to all the established canon before.
Right.
This is, I mean, I don't know.
My feeling is if they let the writers in the writers' room write, because I believe them when they say most of the people in the writers' rooms are huge Star Trek fans.
Oh, I'm certain, yeah.
And totally know when they're breaking canon and stuff. But they've also mentioned that they have a council that's like a Supreme Court of knowing when to bend canon and everything. And to me, that feels like, even though Kurtzman and Goldsman probably feel like they're doing the best thing, they're coming in from producer standpoints and dictating what the writers need to do. And I feel like there's already been rewrites and stuff that they have had to go and change. And so that's my worry. Apparently there's a whole episode that Kirsten Beyer wrote that is the most like the original series, or where it's just one episode all about Lieutenant Saru and his planet. He's a biologically determined to sense death, but that he's a prey race and on his planet. And there's a whole episode just about him that sounds like it could be great. And there's so much greatness in there. And like David Mack is writing the novels, and there's been more back and forth between where he's given notes to the production about where the main character, Michael Burnham's backstory that they've actually written into the show and is kind of reflected where they're taking notes from the writers and from the novels that know this stuff. But my worry is that then you also have Alex Kurtzman coming in. Sorry, we have to change. This is bendable for me. It's in the prime timeline, but we can bend what the prime timeline is.
Okay, so one of the things I just want to point out, that he's biologically determined to sense death.
Yeah.
Aren't all living things?
Well,
isn't that the nature of evolution?
For that character, Lieutenant Sorrow, he's a Kelpie is the name of his race.
Oh my God.
Okay, yeah. I rolled my eyes at that too.
Right. But he's a prey race. Like, he grew up on a planet where he's not the dominant, he's not the apex predator like the Klingons. They like to...
Like in, what's his name? Like in Deep Space Nine, The Hunted.
Right. So apparently Kirsten Beyer has already written an episode that everybody's like, this is going to be great. It's going to be like the most classic Trek episode where it goes into his planet and his whole thing. I think it's going to be good because it's going to be exploring different species and cultures.
So you keep calling him a prey race, but how did a prey...
I guess we'll find out.
Like, were they...
Well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I guess that's okay. That's just base speculation, but it doesn't make any sense to me. But
elephants are really there's
elephants don't make spaceships either, fucker. It seems like you've got to get to the apex part before you're into the making spaceships part.
On an evolutionary scale, you're saying?
Yes.
I'm just saying infinite diversity and infinite combination, or takes all kinds.
I think it's generally safe to say that if you meet an alien race from a planet, they're probably one of the apex predators.
Who says?
Because how do you get...
Maybe millennia ago, they were great. Like, evolutionarily, they're the prey species, but there was, like some sort of revolution, and people, maybe the apex predators, like humans, all decided to be vegan or something, and then they
Power to the fish people? Okay. But they still have these predetermined evolutionary coding for that. And that's
The other thing about... He's also the first and only Kelpian or whatever his species is. He's the first of his species to be accepted in the Starfleet. And apparently him and Michael Burnham have a kind of competition / kind of sibling kind of relationship, is a thing that they've said.
All right.
Okay.
Because he's going to be the special man for the series.
He's the special man.
Yeah.
That's what that...
Yeah. But isn't she also supposed to be, like, because she's the woman torn between two worlds?
Right.
She was raised, as the story, she was raised in Vulcan, right?
Right. Her dad's name was Michael Burnham. She's a refugee, basically, or her whole, wherever she was, got destroyed. And then Sarek and Spock's mom, what's her name?
Mrs. Sarek.
Yeah. Sorry, nerds. They pulled her out and...
Winona Ryder.
Yeah. And pulled her out and raised her as their own. So she's not even a stepsister. She's just an adopted.
She's a foster.
She's a foster kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is okay, fine.
Yeah, that's not a problem. But I mean, doesn't it seem that in the trailers they want to heavily indicate that she's torn between two worlds.
Yeah.
She struggles with
where she belongs.
Vulcan
Right. She's the
logic.
first,
Which is basically Worf's story. Worf,
Yeah, it's Worf. It's
Worf was a
Worf.
foster child and
Yes.
raised by Russian humans.
and she's the human. She's the first human to graduate or go to the Vulcan Science Academy.
Yes, just like Worf was the first,
Yeah, exactly.
Klingon in, yes.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
It's a little warmed over Worf action, but it's okay. We like Worf.
yeah, it is a little bit. Why couldn't they just have something original? Why does everybody have to be related? Like that's every franchise.
This
but-
is my biggest gripe, is that there's an awful lot of fan service because we've got Harry Mudd in it too.
yeah,
Mhm.
Space Pimp Harry Mudd.
We have a lot of connections to the first original series.
Tribbles will be in this. Apparently, they've been locked in.
Mm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Tribbles are definitely in it.
All right.
Yep. I'm sure Harry Mudd's involved with Tribbles somehow. I don't know.
And we've said on the rules of acquisition a couple times the things that are obviously positive about the show.
Oh yeah.
It's got a diverse cast. It's got
Oh yeah. By the way, that's been. I want to take a second here. I think we should probably address this in the podcast. If you're the kind of person that wants to snipe at the show because it's got one white guy in it and he's probably gay, like we're not the podcast for you.
Yeah, well-
okay, like get the fuck away.
It's got two white guys in it, and one of them is definitely gay.
Yes,
Jason
So,
Isaacs is probably, who knows?
Yeah, we're
Adam Rapp.
disinterested in
great.
we're disinterested in your bitching about that. Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, very, very much.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
Hardcore. Full stop.
Right.
Don't stop
Yeah,
listening,
yeah.
but go fuck yourself.
If social justice warrior like bitching on a podcast bothers you, maybe don't subscribe.
No, these
or
hate
I don't know,
listen.
fucking
Yeah, yeah.
subscribe.
Tell all your friends what assholes we are.
Subscribe and yeah, hate listen. To
Maybe
this,
we
but
could
you know
change your
what?
mind, but most likely we can't because you're broken inside. But I think there is some stuff that we're excited about. I mean,
Yes.
we've got some interesting female leads that we haven't seen in a while. I mean, we had Lieutenant Kira was a first officer. She was like the first female first officer, but she wasn't a Federation officer. So I can see how some people are excited about this being the first female first officer.
Mhm.
And, of course, you've got another female captain. Michelle Yao is playing a captain of what's her ship again?
The Shinzu? I think?
Or she Discovery, and Isaacs is...
No,
she's-
Isaac's the Discovery. She's the captain of the Shinzu, which is the first ship that Michael Burnham serves as first officer on.
So is Michelle Yao's like stunt casting? She's in like 2 episodes and then dies.
No, she's got 15 episodes listed on IMDb.
Oh, okay, great.
Oh my god, there's 15 episodes of this shit.
Yeah, they added more to the original by, yeah.
Michelle Yao's in 15 episodes.
Oh, that's good. Because my prediction was that the Shinzo gets destroyed in the first 3 episodes.
It probably does get destroyed in the first 10 minutes and she's
Yeah.
captured or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we're all pretty. It seems a safe assumption to think that Jason Isaacs is playing a villain.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, now...
he's playing a war hero. Like they're in the middle of the war, and
Mm-hmm.
and they've thrown out him being a evolved human being because he's just like a war captain, and he's a bit of an asshole. I'm pretty sure that's the angle they're going with him.
Let me tell you something about Jason Isaacs. I am very excited for him to be in this show.
Oh yeah.
It's just because I look at the work that he did during the OA, and
which we love.
no, we
No, we
the
do not.
OA is the single worst thing that's ever been put on the air. But Jason Isaacs' performance in that was stellar.
He's great. Yeah.
He somehow pulled off and made some very interesting choices and turned in a fantastic performance. And he's one of the reasons I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
The Michael Burnham character, I have never seen that actress, and I haven't seen The Walking Dead.
She's pretty. I mean, she's good. She's probably going to be good. Like Sonequa Martin Green is a great actress. Everybody, well, they've been talking her up.
I'm sure she's great,
Yeah.
but I'm not like, as far as my level of excitement is
Sure.
it's Jason Isaacs is because he's got the bona fides.
Yeah. Jason Isaacs and Michelle Yao.
Yeah, Michelle Yao, of course.
Yeah.
I hope that they let her do some badass stunt work.
Yeah. I've met Adam Rapp at like a Q&A before. He was a real nice guy.
Is he the Rent guy?
Yeah. He's been watching Deep Space Nine and getting into it and tweeting about it. And his husband or partner on the show is what's his name? the gay guy from My So-Called Life.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, that guy is also on the show.
I like that. That guy's still working.
So wait a minute.
That's good.
Are there going to be? There's going to be families on the ships?
I don't know if they're going to be. They're going to be domestic partnership at the least, but they're a couple, and
they might be both.
Oh, co-workers. They're both
Federation.
No, they're definitely. Yeah. I mean, they're together. There's going to be them making out. I'm 98% sure, which is way to go, because they've already said that they're going to be the most open and like, hey, yeah, we're going to
full penetration.
Okay, Star Trek Beyond, they tried to pat themselves on the back for having Sulu gay and with his husband, but they still cut out that gay kiss so they could sell it to China. They're not going to bother with that.
I mean, this is going to be like, I don't know, have you seen Behind the Candelabra, the Liberace movie for HBO? It's going to be like that, I'm pretty sure.
What are you talking about? Liberace wasn't gay.
No, Matt Damon and Michael Douglas sure didn't.
Yeah, like... Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, so that stuff is exciting. I don't know. I'm less excited about the
Wilson Cruz is his name. He's also a doctor on the show.
Oh, okay. You're not gonna co-sign on the Jason Isaacs excitement.
I will.
You think it's just because
co-signing on the Jason Isaacs excitement? I like Jason Isaac. I think he's a quality. I mean, obviously, I don't think I've ever seen him play anything that wasn't a villain. Even on that Brotherhood show, he was kind of like I guess on the West Wing, he played like a brief not asshole guy for a while. So no, he's a talented guy. He can bring it, and I'm pretty sure that Walking Dead girl can bring it. I have confidence in the cast.
And the cast is all very like, oh, we're doing right by Star Trek. We're really keeping, but they're all actors. So what the fuck? They don't. Yeah.
Abe Sabian's in it. So
I am not down for the biologically determined character. I do not like the character design.
Oh yeah,
at all on that.
I don't like that he's got fetlocks.
Yes,
he's on the hooves. He's got hooves.
That bothers.
I don't.
I like it.
I don't like the fact that anything that if I put like a worm on a hook and dip it in a pond and it could pull him out.
Apparently, the makeup crew and people, the producers, when he was doing his makeup tests, they're like, we need to put a prosthetic ass on him because this guy has no ass. And Doug Jones is like, wait a minute. No, leave me without my ass. I'm more alien without an ass. And they're like, okay. It's like,
he's a very strange man. He's notoriously strange. And he plays a lot of sort of body, roles that require a strange body. He's famous for, I said he was Abe Sapien. He plays Abe Sapien in the Hellboy movies. He's also the thing in Pan's Labyrinth that holds its hands up to its eyes.
Yeah, he's great. I'm excited for him.
Yeah.
He gets to do that and act, which we'll see.
All right. I guess we should say also that we're probably going to do on this podcast we've talked about doing. There's another show coming out like the same week, right?
Oh, a week before, I believe. Yeah,
a week before, called The Orville. It's a Seth MacFarlane show. We're not the world's biggest Seth MacFarlane fan.
We're not.
As much as if you've listened to this podcast, you can tell how big of fans we are about Discovery. We're less fans of Seth MacFarlane.
But so far, I'm more excited about the things I see out of the Orville. Now it can go downhill fast. It can just be a lot of like fart jokes and like
space orgasms jokes.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure we're gonna have at least one of those.
Yeah.
If it turns into 50 Ways to Die in Space or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Like or whatever 500 whatever that fuck that movie was, it didn't look funny at all. If it turns into just a typical Seth MacFarlane thing, but I want to do it. I think we're going to do a thing where each week we spend a brief moment talking about the Orville episode, and where we balance it against Discovery.
The Orville,
I will tell you this: that Charlize Theron has agreed to the guest star on the Orville already.
Oh, well,
Academy Award-winning actress.
James's boner is leaning one way.
I imagine she'll be fully clothed.
Yeah, I don't know. Michelle Yeoh is.
That's true. Yeah,
I saw her at an impressionable age in Jackie Chan movie.
Yeah, but the difference between the big difference, I think, the Orville and Discovery. Oh, this is another gripe I have with Akiva Goldsman. As much as they talked about the prime timeline and insisted on that, the other big buzzword that they keep saying over and over again, Akiva Goldsman keeps saying about how, but it's the most serialized Star Trek. Like that's going to make it better.
Yes.
He's like, and at first he was like, this one's not unlike every other Trek. This one's going to be serialized.
Every other, whoa, DS9, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Then a certain journalist said, wait a minute. what about Deep Space Nine? And then Akiva was like, well, it's going to be more serialized than even the last 2 seasons of Deep Space Nine were. It's like, okay, yeah, that's fine because it's 15 episodes. And
well, the nice thing about 15 episodes is that hopefully there won't be a whole lot of fat that needed to be trimmed.
Right. Well, and we're fans of serialization.
Oh yeah. That's not a bad thing. I assume.
Yeah, on the rules of acquisition, we're like, oh, it's so great that they'll be able to do without all this filler and stuff. And we do our white albums for Deep Space Nine where we cut out all that stuff. But it's still that, like, they've been throwing the term Akiva has been throwing the term serialization around, like he's Nigel Tufnell pointing at the amp on Spinal Tap. It's like, but this goes to 11, like for the serialization. Yeah, that doesn't mean it's going to be good,
Right.
It's gonna be each one is gonna be a loop where the last scene of each episode will end mid sentence, and the next scene episode will finish the sentence.
Yeah. So we're pro serialization, but that's not what makes a good show. And the Orville, by contrast, Seth MacFarlane has said Star Trek hasn't done this for over 15 years or whatever, where they've had episodic stuff. So every episode of the Orville is going to be standalone because I think he said in interviews like, oh, Star Trek doesn't do this anymore, and that's a shame. And they've got Braga as a producer on the Orville.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
Did you know that, James?
I did, yes.
Yeah. They've got a lot of Trek talent on the Orville. They've got Cassidy Yates and Bashir's dad.
Yeah.
And they've got, Jonathan Frakes is directing both the Orville and an episode on the back end of Discovery. Yeah. So who knows? They could both be good.
So we'll be able to go Frakes to Frakes on that.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, look, here's the thing. Here will be my shtick on this podcast, I promise you. I'll be the person that is open to be won over by these changes, and I really will. A good story is a good story. I could tell it, and the story's working and generating. I don't give a shit what they do to the Klingons, but if the story's mediocre,
we're gonna have words
like the shitting on the So, and if you just told me, hey James, Alex Kurtzman and Akiva Goldsman got together to make a sci-fi show for CBS, I would probably say hard pass. Like, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And I would guess everybody on this podcast would.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm standing, but I'm super hopeful. And I love good Trek. When Trek works, it's good. I love it. So
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I agree. Oh, this is our first episode here. I don't know. Do we have a way to close it? How do they close Prairie Home Companion?
Well, we're going to sing a little shanty on the way out here. Well, again, thanks for listening to our Prelude to Discovery episode. And I hope that you join us for the next 15 podcast episodes as we go episode through episode of Star Trek Discovery.
If you don't hate us, go listen to our Deep Space Nine podcast.
It's the best.
The best Trek.
Yeah, it's the best Trek, and we're pretty much the best Deep Space Nine Star Trek.
Yeah. I mean, all modesty,
right. Unless you're already listening to the rules of acquisition, in which case, keep listening.
Yes, and give us a call. We have a call number, right?
Oh yeah. So we have a hotline number at 917-408-3898. Maybe we need to split that up between Discovery and Deep Space Nine calls going down, but right now it's all the same.
Yeah, we might have to do that. But in the meantime, just let us know which podcast you'd like to be your call to be featured on.
Yeah.
Just identify who you're calling in for.
Yeah.
Yes.
And review us, do all the other things that every podcast wants you to do. We'll probably just keep the one Twitter on Acquisition Pod. You can follow us there and find out stuff.
Yeah.
Rules of Acquisition Podcast at gmail.com. We might have a Discovery one eventually. I don't know. Depends on how things work.
Yeah, we're a podcast empire. We just have the one, right?
Right.
How they do it.
All right. Well,
it's the start of our podcast empire.
I don't.
But yeah, we're just getting started here. Tell all your friends, if you shell out for CBS All Access or however you get to watch the show, we hope you listen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I guess we'll sign out the usual way. Thanks again for listening. 3 to beam out.
All right. Yeah. Oh, but by the way, I will be paying for it. Just so in case anybody, you should too.
Yeah, of course we will
Support
too. Yes,
the art you love.
yes, we're good boys. All right,
we're good boys.